much fun the past few days. We've caught 7 mice so far, rats and mice.
All right, folks, we're going to go ahead and begin. I see Susan is joining us now. Well,
I'm on my walk.
Oh, excellent. Well, thank you for joining us. And, you know, part of the fun with all of the holidays is the preparation involved that gets you sort of in the mood for the holidays. Oftentimes Passover has so much going on that people feel, you know, overwhelmed by it. And so hopefully today we're going to get excited about Shavuot by making a cheesecake. Also have a very light, not deep discussion, but a little source sheet prepared so we can discuss about why we eat cheesecake on Shavuot. And so if you haven't downloaded that, Shelly has uploaded it into the Facebook feed, into the comments, and she's also putting it into the chat of the Zoom meeting. And so you could go get it, but you don't need it because I'm going to walk everybody through the source sheet. We're not going to be having different people read. So we're going to go ahead and begin. And the first thing that we need to do is go over to our oven and preheat it to 350. And then the second thing that we do after we start our oven is we're going to go and we're going to prepare our springform pan. So if you're baking along with me and you've got your springform pan, now's the time to get it out. In the ingredients list or in the hardware that I put on the bottom, I said that there were a couple of optional items, and one was a roaster pan that your springform pan can fit inside, and the other was heavy-duty aluminum foil. The purpose for those things is to cook the cheesecake in a water bath. This isn't necessary, but it is how I was taught, and so that's how I'll be doing it. You can follow this recipe without the water bath, but what the water bath does is it cooks the cheesecake in a very gentle environment, which helps the cheesecake, it helps prevent cracking in the cheesecake. So if you're using a water bath, the first thing you need to do is take apart the 2 parts of your springform pan. Piece of heavy-duty aluminum foil. You want a nice large square. And the way I do it is I lay the tin foil over the bottom piece and then attach the springform pan. This tin foil will prevent water from coming in to your springform pan during the baking in the water bath. After you have the piece of tin foil in, we're going to just smush the tin foil up the outside wall of your springform pan. So it fully covers the outside of your springform pan, like so. And after we do that, this is not necessary either, but a recommended step is to spray the inside of your springform pan with some cooking spray. In my experience, it actually doesn't stick, even if you don't spray it. But it's an extra step, an extra precautionary step. All right. We can put the springform pan aside momentarily. And we are going to take out our sleeve of chocolate graham crackers. Now, If you don't like chocolate, that's fine. If you want to use regular graham crackers, that's fine. I know we have somebody baking along with us who's not using chocolate. That's entirely fine. The main flavor of the cheesecake comes from the filling, but I like the complement of the dark chocolate with the white chocolate flavor. A Ziploc baggie. I don't think I put that in the necessary it's the necessary equipment. But I'm going to dump my one sleeve of graham crackers into a gallon-sized Ziploc baggie. I'm going to try to get out as much air as possible. Don't worry about crushing the graham crackers because that's what you're going to be doing in a moment. Get out as much of the air as possible and zip it shut. And here comes a fun part. I use a rolling pin, but anything you need to smash up your graham crackers. This rolling pin, by the way, is an heirloom rolling pin. It's Shelley's grandmother's rolling pin. So I'm not allowed to put it in the dishwasher. And I have to wash it by hand. We have a lot of heirloom things in our kitchen and dining room.
I have a question.
What's that?
I have a question.
Yes.
I was somewhere in the kitchen before. When you do the springform pan, you put the foil on the bottom like this, and then
No, you put the foil on the inside. It should be the inside of the bottom, and then you.
Let me see.
I can't.
Okay, I put it on the wrong way.
You know what? That'll be fine. Arlene, it'll be fine. The main function of the foil is to prevent water from getting in, which will do that way. Reason I like it on the inside of at least the bottom piece, is it makes the cheesecake easy to remove from the springform pan later on. But either way is fine. After we've crushed up our graham crackers, we're going to go ahead. If you're using chocolate, I know Arlene's not. My 2 squares of dark baker's chocolate that was in the ingredients. The 2 squares of dark baker's chocolate, put in a little dish. We're going to microwave it for a minute on power level 70. Chocolate is funny. If you microwave it too high, it won't bake properly.
Avi, did you say 4 little fingers?
What's that?
Did you say 4 little fingers of the chocolate?
2 squares. 2 1-ounce squares. All right, I'm going to cook it for 1 minute. Power level 7. And while that is melting, we're going to go ahead and take our 1 stick of butter, unwrap it. That's going to go in with the chocolate next to melt together with the chocolate. Half a stick of butter. Is that a full stick? Sorry. And while this is all happening, let's discuss, does anybody know why we eat cheesecake on Shavuot? So, you know what? I'm going to go ahead and mute the participants because somebody is smashing, properly so, smashing their graham crackers. I'm going to go ahead and mute the participants for a moment. And while we're doing this, so if you have a question, raise your hand or something and I'll unmute you. Okay, after we've microwaved the chocolate squares, I'm going to go ahead and add the butter to it. Add the half a stick of butter. microwave again for another minute. Again on 70% power.
Do you use the butter if you're not using chocolate? Do you need that to?
You still need the butter. You need the butter even more so if you're not.
Right, because of the graham cracker crumbs. Okay.
Right. So cook time 1 minute. Power level 7. Start. Yeah, so I muted everyone, but everyone has the ability to unmute themselves if they have a question. But this way, we won't get the ambient sounds of your kitchen as well. So, all right. So if you have, while we're doing this, if you have the source sheet, I want to point you to the first source, but if not, I'm going to read it anyway. The first source is a halachic book from the, it's called the Kolbo. It's from the late 13th, early 14th century. We don't know the author, but it's a halachic treatise. And it says, it is also a minhag to eat honey and milk or dairy on the festival of Shavuot, because the Torah is compared to honey and milk, and it says honey and milk are under your tongue. So first of all, of course, the Torah is compared to honey and milk, and Shavuot is the time when we receive the Torah. I have my my mixture of butter and chocolate, and now I'm going to stir it around until it's all just like a one liquidy mess, which is what we want. And I am going to pour my graham crackers into a bowl. Once the graham crackers are in the bowl, I'm going to take my my butter and chocolate and add it to the bowl. And then I'm going to get the graham crackers all nice and gooey with the chocolate and the butter. So the Kolbo says the Torah is compared to milk and honey, as it says, honey and milk are under your tongue. So where is this verse from? This verse is from Shir HaShirim, or Song of Songs, and that is the next source on the source sheet. And the verse says, sweetness drops from your lips, O bride, honey and milk are under your tongue, and the scent of your robes is like the scent of Lebanon. So if you remember Shir HaShirim, which we read over Passover, Shir HaShirim is, of course, a love poem between two lovers. But the sages tell us that it's also read allegorically as a poetry between God and Israel. And as we say every morning in the Birchot Kriyat Shema, the second bracha is Ahava Rabbah, and in that bracha we talk about God showing love to us, the people Israel, and His showing love. How does God do that? Through the Torah. So here, on one level, the verse from Song of Songs is telling us is just one lover to the other. But if we read it as God talking to Israel, sweetness drops from your lips, O bride, honey and milk are under your tongue. It would be the sweetness of the Torah, the teachings of the Torah that are under your tongue. We're going to go ahead and place our graham crackers into the springform pan. After the graham crackers are in the springform pan, we want to press them into the bottom, cover the bottom. All right, here's another piece of equipment that I didn't list, but that you need now, or you don't need this, but it's helpful for the pressing in. So you have a nice pressed down crust. I like to take the bottom of a glass and just press. Whoa,
Oh my God.
no. I tried to show y'all and I messed this thing up. Okay. This is when I'm really happy that the tinfoil is there saving me. All right, we're good to go. Everything is good. And we're gonna press our crust. We wanna make sure we cover the entire bottom of the pan. You may have some extra graham crackers at the end, and that's okay. Some people like to press it up the side walls. I don't do that. I'll just brush it off into the garbage momentarily. But we want to cover the entire bottom of the springform pan. All right, if you're done with pressing it into the bottom of the springform pan, I'm taking my excess and just brushing it off into the garbage. That's not necessary. We're gonna put it into our oven, our 350-degree oven, and set our timer for 8 minutes. All right, and I'm gonna wash my hands off because I have chocolate graham cracker crumbs all over them. All right, and now we move on to our filling. We take our food processor. This is a food processor. It's another sort of heirloom. It was my, you could probably tell from the look of it, it was my mother's back in the 70s. It went on to my sister at some point, and now it's stuck with me. And I get good use out of it. And it may be from the 70s, and it may be called La Machine, but which is pretty corny, but it works really well. Before we get to the blender, we need to start melting our white chocolate. So I have here a nice glass bowl. We're gonna take out our baker's chocolate, break it up. Second box of white chocolate, a lot of white chocolate. Actually, Baker's chocolate, this Baker's brand, they used to have 8-ounce boxes. They kept the price the same and dropped the boxes to 4 ounces. So I used to feel good that I was only putting 1 box in, but now I have to put 2 boxes in. So those of you who are talking about how highly caloric this sounds, yep. We're gonna put our white chocolate into the microwave. Again, this time for 1.5 minutes, but a power level of 7. So cook time, 1 minute, 30 seconds, power level 7. All right, while that is happening, I have rinsed off my spatula from the graham cracker crumbs. We're going to need this again. and to stir around the white chocolate in a minute. But you can also begin. Oh, unmute your mom. You have a question? Can't hear you. You're unmuted, but we can't hear you. I'm going ahead and putting my cream cheese blocks into the food processor.
Avi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Avi,
Yes.
how long is the white chocolate in the microwave for?
It's right now on 1.5 minutes at power level 7. We're going to have to mix it around and do that again. Second time. So my white chocolate has finished its first round. I'm going to take it and just give it a little mix through. Because you know how microwaves heat unevenly. And then I'm going to put it back in for this time. Just 1 minute is probably all I'll need. 1 minute more at power level 7 once again. All right, we're putting our ingredients in. So we have the blocks of cheese that we're putting in. And while I'm doing this, so we just talked about in Song of Songs how the sweetness from your lips, O bride, honey and milk are under your tongue. Allegorically speaking, it's referring to God and Israel and the Torah, the sweetness of Torah being under your tongue. And to demonstrate that, I'm going to read what the Midrash says. Shir Hashirim Rabbah. The rabbis say, and this is on these words, and they're commenting on these words of Song of Songs. So the rabbis say, anyone who says words of Torah in public, and they are not pleasant to those who hear them, like milk and like honey and milk mixed together, it would have been better off as if they had not been said. So Torah is supposed to be words of sweetness to us. All right. We have our white chocolate. We'll take it out. I'm going to mix it around again, but it should, after you mix it around, it should be pretty well melted by now. All right. We're going to add our other ingredients. We're not going to add the eggs yet, but all the other ingredients we're going to add. So we've got my sugar here. Sugar, we're adding 3/4.
Question,
Yes.
can you use pure vanilla instead of vanilla extract, or should it be vanilla extract so it's not so sweet?
I actually use pure vanilla because that's what we have, but use either one.
Okay, because I use pure vanilla. Okay, thank you.
Where's my quarter cup?
Oh, it's in the dishwasher. Had oil in it.
Okay, got our quarter cup, and so I'm going to do 3 scoops of sugar. About 3 scoops of sugar, then 2 teaspoons of vanilla. And a 1/2 cup of whipping cream.
calling in.
Avi,
Yes. Okay, hang on one second, Kana. I'm just gonna take out the our graham cracker crust. And just set it aside for now. Kana, what's your question?
can you substitute sugar substitute for part of the sugar?
I can tell you, I don't have much, I don't have much experience with that. So I understand why you would want to. It's a lot of sugar, and of course, sugar is not great for you. I most recommend staying with the sugar. If you cannot, then yeah, just substitute part of it. I wouldn't substitute all of it. It really, it's a different thing, especially when you're baking. Everything, it's a chemical reaction, and everything has to be just so.
Okay.
So I've added the sugar, the vanilla, the cream, and now I'm going to add our white chocolate. And once we add our white chocolate, we don't add the eggs yet. Once we add the white chocolate, we are going to process it. We want to get it smooth. We don't want to over process it. When you over process it, it lets in too much air into the batter. And we don't want that. That's the enemy of a cheesecake, is air in the batter. So we want to keep it to a minimum, but we do want it smooth. One of my blocks of cheese is not getting down into the blades, so I'm just gonna.
Mine too.
All right, so take it, so open the cover, chop it up a little with your spatula, and then try it again. We'll get it, I promise. There we go. Mine is looking good now. Does everybody have theirs processed? Has everyone processed theirs? All right. Now that we've got this, now it's time to add the egg. The reason why we add the egg last is because the egg really gets air into it. It makes the whole thing lighter and gets air into it. So we want to do it very carefully. We're going to add the eggs one at a time and really just process for a few seconds. One egg. Oops, looks like I got some of my chocolate crumbs in there. It'll all taste good. One egg. Second egg. You know what? I'm going to get another clean glass. Here's the second egg. And finally, the third egg. Has everyone processed their batter with the eggs? I've unmuted you so you can tell me. Yes. Okay. So we're all good. So next, we're going to take our spatula. Hopefully you have one of these silicone flat edge things. Take the flat edge and just run it along the walls, just in case some batter was sticking to the walls and didn't get processed, right? Cheesecake is so yummy. We want to make sure we get all the batter. All right. Now, make sure it comes off the, see, I do have some stuff that wasn't processed. Even though I said we want to do minimum processing, we want to make sure it is all processed. So, right, the minimum that you have to do is to make sure that it is all processed through. Okay, and I think mine is ready. Yeah, they're unmuted. Yes, Tanya. Can't hear you and you're unmuted. Cannot hear you.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, should the oven still be on 350?
Oh, you know what? Excellent point. Folks, turn your oven down to 300. I totally forgot about this.
Way to go, Mom.
All right. Thank you for the help. There's a lot to keep track of, especially when you're looking at a screen and not.
Tanya will teach the next class.
What's that?
Tanya will teach the next class.
Yeah.
Right.
All right. If we're all done with our batter, and we have to let our oven go down to 300, we're going to take our batter and pour it into our spring form. You want to scrape the nice batter out, right? We don't want to leave too much batter in there because it's all very yummy. All right. The batter is in the spring form pan. What I like to do is just shake it back and forth a little bit to smooth it out. Not necessary, but it's just something I like to do. You may find some bubbles forming on the top. If you do that, if you have that, I like to take a teeny knife with a pointy edge and just break the bubbles. Again, not necessary. These are just little things that I like to do. Now the next step, for those of you who are doing the water bath with me, we need to heat up some water. So I've just got my electric kettle here and I'm going to fill it. It's full with water and I'm going to heat up the water. And while that's heating up, I'm just going to take you through a little something. So we just learned in Shir HaShirim that words of Torah spoken in public are supposed to be sweet, right? They are not pleasant. If they are not pleasant, then they should not have been. It would have been better that they had not been said, is what the Midrash tells us, right? And they learn that from the Song of Songs, that from your lips, honey and milk are under your tongue. So words of Torah are supposed to be sweet. And of course, We received the Torah. When did we receive the Torah? On Shavuot. So that is the connection to the sweetness of the milk and honey. And I'm sorry, we don't have honey in this recipe. To Shavuot. I found this beautiful passage from this book here, Rituals of Childhood, Jewish Acculturation in Medieval Europe by Ivan Marcus. It was published in 1996. And this is great because it teaches, it talks about a ritual that was done on Shavuot with children. And it says, at the age of 5 or 6, a Jewish boy living in medieval Germany or France might begin his formal schooling by participating in a special ritual initiation ceremony. Early on the morning of the spring festival of Shavuot, someone wraps him in a coat or a talit and carries him to the house of the teacher. The boy is seated on the teacher's lap, and the teacher shows him a tablet on which the Hebrew alphabet has been written. The teacher reads the letters first, forwards, then backwards, and finally in symmetrically paired combinations, and he encourages the boy to repeat each sequence aloud. The teacher smears honey over the letters on the tablet and tells the child to lick it off. Symbolically, the words of the Torah, and this is the beginning of his teaching, they should be sweet as honey. My kettle is ready, and I'm going to pour my water into the roasting pan. And after I pour the water into the roasting pan, I'm going to place my springform into the roasting pan. Ideally, the water should go up about halfway. I don't have enough, so I'm going to heat up some more water.
How hot should the water be?
The water should go up to about halfway on the springform pan.
No, how hot?
Boiling.
Well, you didn't tell us soon enough to do that, so it's taking me a little while.
Okay, you can take your time. Don't worry.
Okay.
I have a bit of a time constraint on me, so I have to move along. But just take the water, heat it up to boiling, and pour it in. And I'm going to continue with this passage from the book that I'm reading. So the teacher smears honey, we said, over the letters on the tablet and tells the child to lick it off. Then it says, cakes on which biblical verses have been written are brought in. So they put biblical verses on cakes. They must be baked by virgins from flour, honey, oil, and milk. So purest of flour, honey, and oil and milk. Next comes shelled hard-boiled eggs on which more verses have been inscribed. The teacher reads the words written on the cakes and eggs, and the boy imitates what he hears and then eats them both. The teacher then asks him, this is a funny little part of the passage. There are some definite superstitions in Judaism, and this is a good one. The teacher next asks the child to recite an incantation adjuring Potah, the prince of forgetfulness. I'm reading it in Hebrew, and it's the prince of forgetfulness, all right? To go far away and not to block the boy's heart. The teacher also instructs the boy to sway back and forth when studying his lessons and to sing them out loud. As a reward, the child gets to eat fruits, nuts, and other delicacies. At the conclusion of this rite, the teacher leads the boy down to the riverbank and tells him that his future study of Torah, like the rushing in water in river, will never end. Doing all these acts, we are told, will expand the child's heart. And this is done on Shavuot. And on Shavuot, we are all supposed to be like blank slates, like the child receiving the Torah for the first time. And so we associate sweet things, and so cheesecake and honey, and so maybe when you make hamotzi tonight over your Yom Tov dinner, instead of using salt, we should use honey. That's a Rosh Hashanah ritual, but maybe we should do that tonight. So I want to wish everybody certainly a holiday that's as sweet as milk and honey, which is what I titled my source sheet. We're almost done here. We're almost done here with the main part of the cheesecake, and then we're gonna make the topping. So my water is close to boiling. Is everyone's water boiled? No? Okay, don't worry. Don't worry. My water is close to boiling. So here's what we're going to do. Once we have finished boiling the water, we're going to place, we put the water in the baking pan, the roaster pan, the springform in there, and then we're going to pop it in the oven, and it's ready to bake. Want to make sure everybody knows. Yes. Yeah.
Is the topping made in the blender or back in the food processor?
For topping, we're going to use a blender.
Okay,
We're done with the food processor now.
okay.
I want to make sure everybody is aware of all the goings on tonight. We have 5:30 is Minyan, and it's also Shiva Minyan for Pam Daggerman's mom, Betty Jean Coppin. Following the Minyan, at about 6:30, our Shavuot teachings will begin. All right, my cheesecake is ready to go into the oven. I'm gonna pop it in to the 300-degree oven. And I'm gonna set a timer for 80 minutes. Right, there are cheesecake recipes that only call for an hour of cooking, but we're cooking at a very low temperature, baking at a very low temperature. So it requires about 80 minutes. How do you know when a cheesecake is done? After the 80 minutes, you open up your oven, you look at it. It should have wiggle in it, but there shouldn't be any wetness. It shouldn't be liquid in the middle. It should look somewhat gelled together, but there should be wiggle. There's still, because a cheesecake will continue baking after we take it out. All right, we're gonna go. I'm gonna go get the blender. We were talking about tonight's goings on. At 6:30, Rabbi Wallach will teach for a half an hour. I'm sorry, I don't have the titles in front of me, but it's all in the email that we sent yesterday. At 7 o'clock or so, Rabbi Sunshine will be teaching. And then finally at 7:30 will be Rabbi Rothman. And then we've published ways for you to join in. United Synagogue has wonderful offerings all through the night for as long as you want to go.
Should the water be, what'd you say, halfway up?
The water should be halfway up the springform pan.
I need more water. Okay.
Okay, don't worry about it.
And
We're
then
not,
80,
we're not on
80,
the
80,
same time
80
anymore.
minutes?
You'll
How long?
you'll bake it for 80 minutes, 80.
Okay, thank you.
I need to move along, so I'm gonna go ahead and we're gonna prepare the topping now. We don't do it until after 80 minutes are up, but we're gonna take our berries. Forgot to pre-wash them. We're going to take our berries and we're going to throw them into the blender. Wash this and dry it. That's the important part. All right, we're gonna take our berries in the blender and we're gonna mix it up. All right. All right, just gonna move these around. They're not that easy to blend up, but you know, without liquefying them. You gotta be careful. We don't want to liquefy them. Just, you know, so pulse it. Okay. You get it all, you want it all pulsed up nicely, but you don't want it liquefied. So this is a nice thick thing, thick mixture here. And we're gonna get a bowl. Have a bowl here into which we're gonna empty our sour cream. This is 8 ounces of sour cream. We put the sour cream into the bowl. We put our crushed up berries into the bowl. And you guessed it, Hannah, we need some more sugar. But this time we're using powdered sugar. We need a 1/4 cup of powdered sugar. Once we've got all that, mix it all around together. Is everybody following along? I need everybody. Okay, the rest of the time out there. Everybody doing okay? We want to stir our topping together until it's all mixed around nicely. And we're just going to set this aside. What we're going to do with this is after, and this is important, folks, so pay attention to this part for a minute. After the 80 minutes of baking in the oven, we're going to take out the cheesecake, still in the pan, so you'll just grab the roasting pan. We're going to pour this on top of the cheesecake and spread it with the spatula over the top so it covers the whole cheesecake. And then put it back in to the oven, to the 300-degree oven for 10 to 15 minutes. I do 15 minutes. It's sometimes based on feel. If you think the cheesecake is starting to firm too much, you may only do 10, but I do it for 15 minutes usually. And then we take it out and our cheesecake is done.
Sorry, I was putting my cheesecake in the oven. What
Okay.
did you say? What did you say about the mixture afterwards, the topping?
After 80 minutes, you're going to take it out, the cheesecake out, pour the topping on top of it gently, because you don't want to collapse your cheesecake, but you should be able to pour it on it and gently smooth it out with your spatula. Then put it back in the oven for another 15 minutes. Okay?
At the 300?
At 300, correct. After that, take out your cheesecake and it's ready to cool. It is important. The trickiest part is removing the springform pan from the water, because you can't use your fingers because it's hot, but grabbing with the oven mitts are not, it's very tricky. What I suggest is get yourself a cooling rack and put it right next to your stovetop. Take your cheesecake out, put it on the stovetop. Make sure you have a hold on the with the gloves on your springform pan, and you're just going to transfer it here to the cooling rack. Okay?
It'll break a little bit.
It will drip a little bit of water. Don't worry about it. It needs to sit outside. It needs to sit outside cooling for at least an hour. You could leave it probably for 2 hours outside also. But after about an hour, hour 15, I'll usually put it in the fridge.
Outside the water bath.
Outside, right. It has to be outside the water bath for that hour, hour 15 minutes. After that, you put it in the fridge. It needs to set for a minimum of 4 hours, but the more it sets, the better. So that's why we did this early, so it has time to set for your Shavuot dinner tonight. It has plenty of time to set. Yes, Tanya?
The topping that we just now made, does it
Yeah.
sit out on the counter or should it be in the fridge while the cake is baking?
It's 80 minutes. It won't make a difference.
Okay.
All right. So that's generally what you need to do. After the cheesecake is on the rack for 15 or so minutes, I recommend, and this is not a necessary step, I recommend you taking a very small sharp knife and just running it on the inside to make sure that the cheesecake separates nicely from the springform pan. It's not necessary, but it's an extra little step that I do. Because that way, when you open up the springform later on tonight, it'll pop open and it won't pull any of the cheesecake batter away from the springform. You get it? All right. Everybody clear on what to do? So,
Delicious.
I want to hear from everybody who made it along with me how it turned out. All right?
Avi,
Yes.
It's not now.
the instructions that you just gave us of how to put everything together, can you send that to us?
Yes, that's what
I cannot. I can, once I'm in the car, I have to go to a funeral right now.
Okay.
What I'll do is I'll dictate it while I'm in the car to Shelley, and she can, and she can send it to you. But it's real easy. It's in there for 80 minutes. After 80 minutes, put the topping on, spread it over the top, put it back in for another 15. Then after 15, let it cool on the rack for an hour. But after 15 minutes of cooling, run the knife around the edges to separate it from the springform. All right?
Okay.
I'm gonna log off now, and I want to wish everybody a Chag Sameach, a Shavuot, as we said, that as sweet as milk and honey. And so may your cheesecake be delicious tonight, and I look forward to hearing from you.